Nebula. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Solar Systems, where we help you understand the system your soul goes into. This is Moon Days with Michael. I'm your host of World Channel, Michael, and I am cutting out the esoteric middleman and giving you the tools you need to connect yourself right to the source. Now, on this episode of Moon Days with Michael, where we're talking about anything that has to do with reality ever, we're breaking down nebulas. We're hopping back into the dimensional series, and we're going to start talking about nebulas, because I kind of didn't film a video about it and kind of just left it out until I made a video where I was talking about it, and now I have to go back and film a video explaining it so that you can go and watch that video and understand it a little bit better. But, you know, spirits don't exactly be following time orders when they be doing their spirit things, but hey, we're here now, we're going to do it so you guys can watch it. So, I mean, without any further ado, we should just start hopping in and start explaining what we're talking about. Anyway, you'll remember that there are certain dimensional vessels for each dimension that you're in, right? So, for example, third dimension, we're in a human body, right? And then for the fifth dimension, you can be a planet. And for seventh dimension, you can be a solar system. Ninth dimension, you're a verse, blah, 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 blah. Well, when we start getting into the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension, things start getting a little crazy. So I left a little something out to make its own video because it's kind of dope. So let's start breaking this down. So if you remember when we were talking about the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension, bam, we were starting to talk about how the ninth dimensional being is a verse, a universe, right? You get your own verse. You're a source. You are basically the highest version of yourself in spirituality, and other beings are living inside you, but you don't really care because you're only in conflict with yourself. Why do I care if there's other beings living inside me? They're not me, they're less than me.
Facts.
Ninth dimensional being things, you know? However, with that being said, if you can eventually become your own source, your own universe, that must imply that there is a multiverse, and this is true. Now here's where nebulas come in, because they don't really fit into any dimensional vessel, right? So now that we understand the multiverse, I know the next question is, can we travel between the multiverse? And the answer is, you can.
Wow.
So, now that we know that there's a multiverse and that we can travel between different verses, what happens next? Well, nebulas. A nebula is nothing more, nothing less than a travel point. You're basically leaving a small part of yourself inside of another verse or galaxy or point of any kind of experience that you want, and then leaving and going to another verse, right? That's why nebulas are so light and dense, and they're just described as clouds of space dust, right? There's no real substance or influence to it. It's basically just a way for you to kick a door open, run in, and actually start experiencing in a different kind of verse, right? Each verse has different rules depending on that being, of course, because each verse is its own separate being, so individuality and all that, you know how it goes. So, a nebula is nothing more, nothing less than a travel point. You're leaving a small part of yourself, a very light and not very dense part of yourself, in order for you to go and actually hop into another verse and have an experience in that verse. And this can honestly keep going on ad infinitum depending on how powerful you are. Not everyone can just go ahead and start traveling the multiverse, right? Obviously, if you're living in the first, second, and third dimension, you're not going to be able to do that. Why? Because you don't even know what direction is up at that point, right? Compared to what a ninth dimensional being can do. So that being said, what beings actually can travel the multiverse and actually leave, you know, a small part of themselves, have a nebula, and then whip back around and go into a different verse. So, now exactly what beings and who can actually go ahead and leave a verse and travel the multiverse and leave a small part behind and become a nebula and all that, right? And actually go travel and be in different verses. Well, anyone, but not exactly. What dimensional level can I actually start leaving and start experiencing inside of another multiverse? And that's pretty simple. The seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension. Why? Because at that point, you have an understanding of your energy, your influence, and exactly what you want to experience, rather than being a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension where you're still kind of like figuring that out. You're in purgatory, basically, right? And if you're in purgatory, you're not going into another multiverse. I can tell you that much. You got way too much to figure out over there.
That's not how it works. Now, how do you know how it works?
With that being said, not every seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensional being is going to be hopping out of a verse into another verse, leaving behind a nebula and all that, right? What actually causes nebulas to look the way that they do and appear in the form that we do? Well, if you go watch Einsis, we say it's the sword chase of the Orion constellation, just looks like a big cloud of explosions because I like explosions. With that being said, the shape and form of a nebula really boils down to you, because think about it like this. I'm in this body, I have chosen the shape and form, right? And you have chosen the shape and form that you are currently in. So obviously when you're making your nebula as your little travel point, you're the one making the shape and form. Now, with all that being said, and us having the understanding that 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensional beings are the ones that go ahead and leave behind nebulas, and the nebulas are just travel points, let's actually talk about the possibility of the nebulas actually influencing us and what that can actually lead us to experience, right? And the truth is, not much. Because you have to remember that a nebula, even though it's very big, is also very light and not dense, right? Unlike a star. Even though stars are typically smaller than nebulas by like a lot, they're a lot more dense, right? So with that being said, what's gonna win? The bigger thing or the denser things? I know you can't see my hands, but they're doing this. But I mean, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. You know, nebulas are pretty simple. But little recap: nebulas are basically the remnants of seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensional beings who have kind of left a little part of themselves into this universe and going hopping out and living in another universe or another galaxy. They're travel points, basically, right? And they're very light and not dense, so their influences aren't really felt unless you have a bunch of stars thrown in the mix around them. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Until next time, you know, like, comment, subscribe. I don't really know what the next video in the series is going to be, because I kind of just be winging it, like I do, because I got them things called wings. Check out our Instagram at Solar Systems, as well as the Reels, where we're giving you the daily limits, breaking down every day's energy every day on the daily, making this too convenient for you. You know, your daily astrological forecast. You're welcome. And with that being said, Lahaya.